In a world where empires fight each other for dominance, power, and wealth, there is a lot of competition. So how did one nation rise above the rest? How did a newly formed, weak union build itself to be known as one of the greatest nations on the server? Join us in this 5-part series where we talk about the incredible rise of Simulami. Starting at its birth, we will be covering its unlikely civil war, the empire's rise, fall, and rebirth under new leadership. Welcome to Simulami. All of this happened on the Stoneworks Minecraft server, so if you would like to join, the link will be in the description.
The continent of Neden was a wild and dangerous place after the Ascension, where the Solian Empire, one of the most powerful nations on Rathnir, fell in a ritual sacrifice. They followed the Solian religion, and the spirits would roam the lands of this fallen empire for years after its collapse. These spirits would often raid towns and kill those who did not agree with their religious views. This is where the Florami and Krabuni people would rise and take this opportunity. The Florami people lived in Neden for many years. They were organized as several tribes situated around Lake Silver, and after the Solian Empire's collapse, the Arshnir dynasty convinced its people to form a nation like those around them. The birth of this nation sparked tensions between the Solian and spirits, and thus the Floramian town of Silver became victim to several raids. Meanwhile, the Krabuni lived on the Maestro Peninsula after their home on Jagdis was destroyed. The nation of Krobun was created by Maestro Zeno Hun and his son, Maestro Shmeka. It would govern itself as a monarchy, with a Tsar at the top and a council beneath them. Shortly after Krobun's creation, Maestro Zeno Hun would resign as Tsar due to his own ambition, and he moved to a tiger forest in the south. This is where he created Fort Muvial. It was a holy city, which quickly grew, and it would become the capital of a new nation, Order Muvial. Shortly after Zeno left Krobun, his son, Shmeka, took the title of Tsar. However, that was short-lived. Shmeka would die with no one to run Krobun. It became a part of Order Muvial. Floramia and Muvial were both thriving. In Floramia, towns started to grow all over the nation, while in Muvial, Zeno made friends with a group of wealthy Draken people known as the Draconians. They lived underground in the mountains around Krobun for millions of years, and only surfaced recently under the leadership of High Worm King Yentl Celestial. Draconia would soon join Krobun and Muvial and become a semi-autonomous vassal. It would contribute greatly to the nation and be the financial centre of Neden for a long period of time. Muvial and Floramia often joked about unification, until one day Zeno and Cadexi met up on the island of Harmony in between their respective nations. It seemed as though unification was the only way for them to increase the power and influence of both of their nations, and after days of talking, they drafted a constitution, and the Simulami Empire was born. A diarchy with multiple cultures at its core. The name Simulami is an acronym, while within the nation its citizens call it Sarin Zerilin, Sarin meaning together, and Zerilin meaning flower petals. This shows the nation's many colours and cultures united as one. Just a few days after the nation was formed, great panic arose. New land was discovered far away by Athaz the Traveller. Zeno, Yentl, and Cadexi knew what they had to do. They formed the Draco Simulami Voyager Mining Company and set sail to these new lands. They established colonies and settled a new Draconian peninsula called Nova Drachagen. The colonies thrived, with towns such as Morgod, Solom, Mercuria, and Vanguard growing very quickly, much faster than towns on the mainland. This new world full of opportunities was quickly named Eldom, but there was also opportunity for conflict. A new nation had formed in Eldom, which called itself Elysia. They were a PvP nation and wished for nothing more than blood, claiming Nova Drachagen as their own. Simulami refused this ultimatum, and it looked like war was inevitable. The United Nations of Eldom tried to step in to ease tensions. They suggested a compromise where Simulami would gain the rest of Nova Drachagen if they gave up a mountain range. Zeno and Yentl laughed and refused this. They launched a raid on Tehensby, the Elysian capital, and this operation was led by Zeno himself and Knight and Ulvia governor Graen Leila Escala. This was Simulami's first real test, and due to them having better communication, they managed to outsmart the Elysians and they looted the town. After hearing about this, the Elysian Emperor withdrew their claim and left Simulami alone, until they collapsed just a few weeks later. Things were going very well on both worlds. Until they weren't. You see, the Solianan faith had a series of beliefs that pushed for all Solianan people to be united under one nation and banner. The sovereigns saw through this, and they formed their own religions. In Floramia, many converted back to Farillian, an ancient religion that the Florami tribes worshipped. In the colonies and the rest of Muviel, a new sect of Soleanin was brewing, which threw the Soleanin ideals out of the window. State and faith were separated. Soleviel thrived in its early days, with Maximilian Ludwig as the patriarch. Of course, this raised tensions between Naida and Simulami, and it seemed like war was about to break loose. Threats were sent from both sides, players began to collect their weapons and armor, while negotiations were taking place behind the scenes. The talks never really went anywhere, and everyone prepared for a crusade. But luckily for Simulami, that never happened. Slowly, over the course of several months, tensions cooled and the Soleanin began to see Soleviel as a friend instead of an enemy. Simulami was growing and maturing as a nation, but over in the continent of Sildor, the Empire of Badonia was quickly expanding under the rule of the prophet and tyrant Kreziman. A coalition was forming in the background consisting of major nations such as Ulderash, Viadoxa, Tortuga, and Plagatea, just to name a few. Simulami was invited to join by Tortuga, and Zeno listened to their allies. He would lead the secondary division, who would attempt to sneak into the Senate building from behind. On the day of the battle, many Simulami soldiers arrived in Kothia with the intention of getting their name out there. The player Seasick Ferret brought a pack of 80 wolves, for which he is remembered for today. Eventually, the coalition won and beat Badonia, showing Zeno's leadership capabilities to the world. Badonia completely collapsed, and it took a couple months for them to reform. Behind the scenes, tensions were rising. Cadexi and Zeno had many daily arguments about the fundamentals of Simulami and how it should be ran. Cadexi had gotten slightly inactive, which left Zeno frustrated, and he made a public announcement denouncing this. After Cadexi showed that he cared about the Empire, Zeno calmed down and things seemed back to normal. After only 2 weeks, things escalated once again, with Cadexi threatening to secede with Floramia. Zeno looked over all they had built together, and all the new players living in Simulami, mainly the colonies who were neither Kubuni or Florami. They were Simulami, a new national identity. When Zeno announced the separation and dissolution of the first Simulami Empire, people were very upset and confused. So Zeno did what he had to do to preserve the Union. He declared the Second Simulami Empire, and with the support of most of their citizens, including those residing in Floramia, and with that motivation, he declared war on Cadexi and everything he had in silver. This is the start of the Simulami Civil War.